Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Katchr and CTS session today. Joining me is the MD of Katchr, Glen Moore. We have the sales manager, Jack Venard, joining in as well. They're going to introduce themselves a little bit more fully in a few moments' time, so I will not steal their thunder. My name is David Vizakli. I'm the Chief Information Officer of CTS. My job really today is just to sort of facilitate. And just on that, as we get into our session, we will certainly want some questions from you as we go. So feel free to use the Q&A function, which is on Zoom. Please don't feel as though you need to wait till the end of the session to put a question in. Sometimes I find what happens with these sessions is you find something interesting as we go, and you might forget about it later. So if you have a thought, if you have a question, if you're stimulated or enthused by something you hear as we go through today's presentation, then please immediately put that question on the Q&A section for later. And at the relevant point later on, I will come to it. If it's asking for clarity of something that's been said, I'll also come to it in that way as well. So today we're going to be talking to Katchr about what it is they do, specifically around their fine-tuned dashboard solutions, solutions that integrate with practice and case management systems, and solutions that ensure that your data is turned into actionable data, actionable information. And we're going to see exactly how that does and how that can benefit you today. And I'm looking forward to that. So as I've said, pose the questions as we go. Don't wait for the end. But it's my pleasure now. We're going to talk a little bit also about the CTS and Katchr partnership and why we're partners. But again, that comes a little bit in the middle of the session. But for now, I'm going to just, other than welcoming you, I'm going to invite Glen Moore to start us off. Graham, over to you.
Thank you very much, David. So, good afternoon, everyone. As David said, my name is Glen Moore. I'm the founder of Katchr. And in the next 45 minutes, I'm going to try and tell you why up-to-date information is essential to running a modern legal business, why your practice management reports will never be enough, why you shouldn't be relying on Excel spreadsheets, why you need automated dashboards, and why CTS have chosen to partner with David. So what we're talking about today is how a successful law firm can operate as a successful business. And I've been working with law firms for over 30 years now. Over that period, I've worked with hundreds of small and medium-sized firms, helping them to improve their business with technology. So personally, I'm a technologist at heart, but I'm really passionate about how tech helps businesses to improve performance. So I'm interested in the use of the technology to improve business rather than the tech itself. And just as a bit of background, I spent the early part of my career developing practice management systems with one of the UK's leading law firm software businesses. I was responsible for the product development. But one of my biggest headaches was always reporting and management information. I spent over 15 years within a practice management vendor trying and generally failing to improve the reporting within our practice management systems. We developed dozens of standard reports, we built report generating tools, we integrated with third-party tools, but none of it really seemed to satisfy the most demanding and most forward-thinking of our customers. One of the real challenges was that we would develop solutions that worked with one firm. One firm was really happy with that. We'd take them to the next firm, and then they'd be completely dismissed. It's not relevant to our firm. We're different. We work in a different way. So then, a few years ago, I briefly left the legal sector. I spent a couple of years in financial services, and what a revelation that was to me. That was over 10 years ago now. But what I learned there was how far behind the legal sector was at the time. Behind financial services in terms of using data to make decisions. What I also learned was that what we've been doing, the way we've been trying to do it, was all wrong. So I came back to the legal sector with the seed of an idea. How could I help law firms really use the data within their practice management systems to manage their firms as businesses? I founded Katchr as a business, and for the last 12 years now, we've been working with law firms to help them solve the problem of how to get faster and easier access to the information they need to improve their business performance. Over that time, we've learned so much more about how law firms use their data, and we've distilled that into some best practice, which is now embedded in the Katchr solution that's available today. So now, in collaboration with CTS, we're able to bring that same level of reporting information that large law firms have grown used to SME law firms like yourselves, who've been having the same challenges with fast and easy real-time access to performance information. So in the promotion for this, and at the start, I promised to talk about, first of all, why up-to-date information is essential to running a modern legal business. It's because without it, this is what happens. We all know the scenario. At the end of a month, the finance team in your firm disappear for a few days. A whole bunch of reports are run off the systems. Management report pack is finally produced. And then maybe a week or so later, then the management board or the partners meet and sit down and digest and analyze that data. They maybe look at 2 or 3 pages in that report pack, and then what happens? Nothing, generally, because by the time they're looking at that information, that month's passed, and nothing can be done about the results for that month because it's already gone. Or even worse, all through the month within the firm, management are expecting to hit their billing target, but nobody's monitoring it because nobody's billing. And then in the last 3 days before the end of the month, an email goes round. Everyone starts billing. And then on the last day of the month, or the last few hours of that day, then the PMS, the Practice Management System billing report, it's being run by 10 different team leaders every 15 minutes as they desperately try to get those final bills in. Now, how can that be proactive modern management in any sort of business? So managing a law firm or any business by purely looking at historical results, I think, is like driving a car while you're looking in the rearview mirror. So up-to-date management information is essential to running a modern legal business. And these are the results. Chargeable hours going up, debtors going down, WIP going down, the entire working capital cycle reduced by 20 days within a substantial law firm. You know, there's no point waiting to the end of the month. There's no point waiting to the end of the month. Don't spend time looking at your data. Spend that time making key decisions. So second thought, why PMS reports will never be enough. So this isn't any criticism, first of all, of PMS vendors. As I said, practice management systems, I was there myself. It's a huge challenge satisfying the reporting requirements of all law firms within one system. You know, I've been there, you know, I've got the badge and I've really struggled with it myself.
Just on that, Graham, and it just triggers a thought in my brain, because I too have spent most of my time in law firms. And, you know, a lot of the practice management systems, you know, they come with, you know, 1,000 reports out of the box, you know, and some of them can be tailored. But the fact is, they're still historical, aren't they? They're still looking backwards. Doesn't matter about the volume of these reports, even though probably 90% of them aren't necessarily relevant to you. They're all, it's not necessarily real-time data. It's still sort of historic data. Would that be a true?
It is, absolutely, yeah, David, you're right. And then, you know, if we look at what they look like, you know, this is an example report from the system, and there's nothing wrong with this as a report. You know, it's a list of the transactions. In fact, in this case, it's a list of all the bills sorted by fee. And there's some useful data there, but that's not what you need if you're going to run a law firm. What does that tell you in terms of action that needs to be taken? And law firms know this, and this is what ends up happening. Somebody takes that report out of the system and then it gets converted into a summary report, because the partners, they want to start with the summary information. They want the high level picture. They may want to drill down into that detail, but they don't want to start with it. So people are spending time taking that data from the system and then converting it into actually the useful form. And the format of this varies from firm to firm. And that's why the practice management systems can't do it straight out of the box, because different firms want it in different, displaying in different ways. Another example of a report, aged debtors. Again, nothing wrong with this report at all. It's got all the data on it, But again, how is that actionable information? So again, what firms are doing, they're taking that, they're combining that debtor information with their billing information, with their time recording information, and putting it into a format that they can then use. So practice management systems are never going to produce the report in exactly the format that you require as a firm, in the right combination, focusing on the key objectives that you've got. So what people do is they take that data, they export it. Some systems are easier than others to export data from, but from any practice or case management system, you can ultimately get the data out and get it into Excel. But why shouldn't you rely on Excel? Well, two really good reasons in our experience. The first is the time, and I've already alluded to that. The finance team, typically in the firms that we work with, when we first engage with them, they're spending hours, if not days, if not weeks, taking that data from the practice management system and loading it into the spreadsheets, and then manipulating those spreadsheets. They have huge complex meshes of interconnected sheets, which ultimately are really fragile. One error in one formula in a spreadsheet that's got maybe 15 different sheets, and the whole thing falls apart. You've potentially got errors in there that can take hours to actually identify, and worse than that, often don't get identified. And so everybody in the firm is working on inaccurate information. So that's why you shouldn't rely on spreadsheets. It takes so much time, and they are error prone.
Graham, I'm reminded of the phrase death by PowerPoint, but you can be swamped by Excel. Both those people having to produce those Excel spreadsheets, like you said, spending an inordinate amount of time trying to produce information that is still only static and relevant at the point it was produced. And from that point forward, it is out of date for however long it takes to not just publish that information, but then for people to actually read it. And let's face it, spreadsheets, not all lawyers, and there's no criticism, they're not great at reading spreadsheets in my experience. The data doesn't mean the same to them as words in documents, and it's not the best way to represent information either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all valid points there. So why do you need automated dashboards? So one of the key points from our perspective is that dashboards are about presenting information. It's not just about data. So we've seen some examples there already of practice management reports. They're presenting data. The data's all there. That's not useful management information. What you're missing is the context. What do I mean by context? So things like targets. Just knowing what a billing figure is in isolation is useless unless you know what the expectations are for that, whether it's for an individual, whether it's an entire firm, whether it's for this week, last week, this month, last year. So all of that context is important to turning that data into useful information. Indicators are a great way, red, amber, green, RAG coding. You see on the example reports, we see it every time we go into law firms, the spreadsheets that they produce are full of color coding. That's what dashboards are great at doing. That's what they're designed to do, to actually convert that data into easy to understand information. Calculations. It's great having a report that tells you all of your time recording and another report that tells you all of your billing. But what if you want to understand your recovery? Then you've got a calculation to carry out, and you will know in your firm how you want to calculate recovery on that time that you've recorded. Those calculations will not be done by standard reports. That again is what dashboards can do for you. And as David's already mentioned, presentation. What dashboards are about is about presenting information in an easy to absorb manner, in a format that is designed to be understood really easily. Now, I know this is a generalization, but most lawyers, when they're 18 or 21, they made a conscious decision that they were going to become lawyers and they weren't going to become accountants. And part of the reasoning there is that that's the way their brain works. They're not the sort of people generally who like to be presented with tables full of figures. If they were that sort of person, they'd have chosen to be accountants in the first place. So why, within most law firms, is the data created by accountants and then presented in an accountant's firm to the lawyers? It just doesn't make sense. So, just this example here, what's going to be more easily understood by a lawyer in terms of performance? The graph on the left or the table on the right. It's just common sense, really. That presentation is really important, and over the years we've been working with law firms, this has been hit home to us over and over again, that by using the graphical displays, it's the best way in general to communicate with teams of lawyers. But ultimately, as I say, this is how most firms are still managing their performance information. Another strength of dashboards, as I've already mentioned, is handling exceptions using indicators. So these are examples of exceptions. And again, in most law firms, the traditional way of identifying risk, of identifying exceptions, is to run a 20-page report and then for somebody to scan down that report, trying to identify where things are going wrong, where we've got files without AML checks, or where we've got cases with no client care letter, where we've got values exceeding budget. That's the perfect task for a computer to be carrying out, and it's a great thing that dashboards are able to do, to be able to run through huge volumes of data automatically overnight when nobody's working on the system, and then identify all of the exceptions, present those to the people that need to know as soon as they come in the morning. So this is some of the feedback we've had on dashboards. It's the simplicity. It's presenting all the information that people need all in one place, all in one screen. And as Julie Jewis says there, it's an absolute game changer in terms of performance management, in terms of making sure that the information you've got is driving performance within a firm. So this is an example of a dashboard. This is just a generic screenshot I've just picked up off Google Images. This is what people think of in terms of dashboards, and there's loads of tools out there in order to do that. And your practice management system probably has some sort of functionality built within it in order to produce dashboards. But that's just a tool set, and that's just a basic mechanism for putting that together. If you want dashboards that are specific to your law firm, then there's a few different ways you can do this. First of all, you can use good old Excel. As we've talked previously, this is what most law firms use to actually compile their data, and there's nothing to stop you using the graphing function in Excel to produce some pretty pictures, actually summarizing the information. But again, back to what I was saying before, is that really best use of the time of your head of accounts or your practice manager or your FD? Is generating that information really the best use of their time, or should they actually be analysing that information and using it in conversations with the fee earners, with the partners, to make sure that the business is actually performing at the optimum level? So that's one option. The other option is to get somebody technical in to actually do the work, to actually build the system yourself. And there's plenty of tools out there. There's things like Power BI that everybody's aware of. Great tools that can be used in order to build dashboards. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Well, in order to build successful management information systems within a law firm, we think there's 4 levels of information that's needed. First of all, you need to access the raw data. So you need some real technical skills in order to know where the data is within your technical infrastructure, and to get that out into some format that you can use. Then you need to understand the practice management system you're using. You need to understand the tables. You need to understand where the data is stored within those systems, how it's stored, how it's joined together, how it needs to be interpreted. So that's another technical skill. It's a different type of technical skill. You then need to understand finance, because ultimately most of this information is finance. And in our experience, most IT people are not qualified accountants. So yeah, they can get data out of the system, but then you start talking to them about utilization and realization, and their eyes will just glaze over, because that's not their area of expertise. But that's what's needed in order to produce good management information. And then on top of that, you've got to then communicate that with lawyers. And back to what we were saying, communicating with lawyers is not just producing tables of numbers and sending them around by email. It's about designing great user interfaces, engaging graphical displays, so those lawyers will understand the information that's being presented. So,
Graham, I think so. I think it's safe to say, I know because I've had to do this recruitment myself. If you're going to employ your own business intelligence analysts and sort of data warehouse specialists, these people don't come cheap, and actually there's not a glut of them in the market. There's competition for them. They come expensive, and not all of them have actually legal knowledge, and actually understanding how to interpret WIP and legal systems is actually important. You can be a marvelous data scientist, but not understand a law firm and the processes of how you manipulate in the positive way the data in the necessary way, certainly from a time recording point of view. So it's not straightforward, and it's expensive. I'm right in saying that, aren't I? And it's not hitting the budgets of most people.
Exactly. You know, getting all those skills in one head is really rare. So you end up either having to have multiple heads and multiple people, which is even more expensive, or you're having to compromise. You get somebody who's great at one piece of this, but they've not really got the detailed expertise in other areas. And as you say, if you do find that rare beast who combines all of this, then you're paying a real premium for that skill set. So the alternative is to work with a specialist provider of management information, business intelligence to law firms, and that's what Katchr is. And by working with ourselves, you can get immediate access to dashboards that look like this. And this is an example of a typical performance dashboard within the Katchr solution. So I'm going to run through a fairly quick demonstration of what our solution looks like. But before I do that, I'm just going to pass back to David quickly to talk about why CTS have chosen to partner with Katchr.
Thanks very much, Graham. And CTS, it's straightforward. It's there on the slides, but we look after law firms and we look after barristers' chambers, and because of that, we have a sector experience and a sector focus. So unlike some generalists, because we only work in this sector, what we call our legal ecosystem of partners is really, very, very important to us. It also allows us just to focus on those vendors and partners and solution providers that are just focused on the law firms. We don't need to be distracted by other things. So actually part of my role actually as the CIO of CTS is to make sure that we partner at CTS with the right people. Now, in many ways, we're agnostic because we have more than 200 clients here in the UK, and they all have a plethora of different systems, and we have to be able to support those different systems. But there is also a lot of commonality. And so we have about 26 partners at the moment in the legal space. And one of the partners we didn't have was a partner that purely specialized on management information, business intelligence, next generation dashboard technology in the legal sector. And so it was very natural for us to come to Katchr, because Katchr is well established. As you'll see in a moment when you look into the product, it's a great product, and it interfaces with so many different practice management systems. And of course, we have clients with different case systems, different practice management systems, who all need solutions that can be easily interfaced and tapped into. And so, Katchr's focus on legal, their recognized brand, their partnership approach, the range of PMS integrations they already have, making this easier, made this very easy actually for us to come up with a partnership arrangement with Katchr. And certainly we've already started introducing Katchr. A number of our clients already have Katchr. We've started to introduce Katchr into a range of our clients that don't have Katchr already, as well as looking to the wider market. And so we're very excited. It was a no-brainer, and as you'll see in a second, it's a great set of solutions. But that's why we're partnering with Graham and his team.
Yeah, thanks, David. So just reinforcing some of those points there. In terms of industry expertise, we like to think that we know as much about law firm management information and KPIs as anybody. We've recently produced a guide that's available on our website, and I think hopefully Jack is going to be able to just stick a link in the chat now. Anybody that's interested in that, please feel free to download and have a look. And yeah, hopefully that'll give you a few ideas of how to improve your KPIs, whether or not you choose to work with ourselves. We're really pleased, really happy, pleased with our reputation in the marketplace, and we get really good feedback from the customers that we work with. And I've just got a few examples here of some of the firms that we work with, and some of the nice things that they've said about us. But yeah, we're really proud of the way that we work with the customers that we do work with. And then the other point that David made was just on the practice management system integrations, and here's a list of the current implementations, integrations that we've got, and you see there's a huge range of different practice management and case management systems that we do integrate with there, and we are adding to this list all of the time as well. So if we just move on to having a look at the product. So what I've got on the screen here is an example dashboard within the Katchr solution. And I always stress the word example, because back to what I was saying right at the start, every law firm is different, and we recognise that, and we don't try to force one size fits all in terms of what you're reporting and what your information should look like. But this is a very typical example of the sorts of performance dashboards that our clients tend to use. And at the moment, I'm logged in as Adam Cole, and I'm looking at Adam's personal dashboard. So we can see what Adam's built so far this month, up-to-date information. We can see what he's built so far this year. And we've got indicators. So as I was saying before, red, amber, green indicators used right across the system to indicate whether something is good or bad. We only really need to be highlighting or having a look at where things are not showing green indicators, because the system's already determining for us what's good and what's not. We can actually see what the targets are behind this, and within the Katchr solution, we've got a whole mechanism for managing targets against any measure, not just billing, in terms of your performance expectations within the firm. So this is Adam's personal dashboard. As I say, if Adam is just an individual contributing fee earner within the firm, that's probably all that he would have access to. He may see more information, but he might not see anyone else's information. But if he was head of the team, and Adam happens to be in the family team in the Manchester office of this firm, then if I select that, then we can see immediately the total values for the entire team. So the team has billed 67k so far this month. They've got a green indicator against their target, and that team is part of the family department. And we can see that the department as a whole has billed 172k this month, and again they're green. And if we keep going up the hierarchy, we've got a practice area as well within this firm, and we can go all the way right up to the top level. So if Adam's got permissions, he can see the entire firm's billing. So within this firm, we've billed 1.4 million so far this month, 15 million so far this year. You can see the various other displays on here. We've got an analysis of the aging, the different elements of our locker. And over here, we've got our exception reporting, our alerts. So the system's actually gone off and determined for us all the cases where the budget limit's been exceeded, or where client money's not moved, or where the fee estimate is missing. So huge amount of information, not just data on this first display. But if we want more detail behind this, if we want to understand more of what's going on behind the scenes, then we can drill into this information in lots of different ways. So if I just click on my billing, my fees delivered figure here, then it immediately takes me into another dashboard. I'm into more detailed information. I've got a trend chart here. I can see our billing in terms of cash received and in terms of bills raised. I can see that over the last 12 months. If I want to see what the position was at the end of our financial year, our last financial year in this firm finished at the end of March. So March 2021, I can just pick that up and I can immediately see the position as at that point in time. It's just as quick to see data from a year ago as it is to see today's data.
And Graham, it's presented, isn't it, as a web page, so it's very intuitive for people to navigate and click as they would do on a web page. It's not, there's not too much to learn here that you wouldn't do just going through a normal website. It's fairly logical and intuitive and straightforward. And like you said, everything's clickable and drillable into the information. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that intuitive user interface, that's, you know, the feedback that we get from firms that adopt this is that the fee earners take it up really quickly. It doesn't need a lot of training, certainly not in how to use the system. It's very simple to use, and yeah, you can just see as I navigate around, my mouse pointer is telling me basically where there's things that I can click and that I can go to. If I want to see a breakdown of that billing figure there, I just click on it, and that's straight into giving me a list of all of the transactions that make up that figure. So we've got a full billing list here now of the entire firm for the month I was just looking at. We can see who the fee earner is, who the client is, what the matter is, and across we can go see the work type, and we can see the billing amounts. And we can take any of this data.
Again, this is real-time information. That's the difference. It's not a historical report. It's real-time information as of now.
So we're able to drop this information into Excel if we need to do further analysis as well, but that's always a secondary thing. In terms of the lawyers, the fee earners, we're just straight into seeing that summary information.
And Graham, how configurable is this?
Yes, so it's really easy to change things like what style of displays used on the dashboard, the different visualizations, they're just all there within a library, and there's a toolkit behind this that the firms can get training, and they can just literally drop additional displays onto these dashboards. They can create their own dashboards. In terms of the different measures, you can see on here we've got 5 key measures for this particular firm that we're focused on. We've actually got a library of about 50 different measures behind the scenes within the system, and it's just a case of point and click to pull any of those into any of the displays. So that's really simple, but we also appreciate that with a lot of firms, they don't want to get involved in that at all, and we also offer that as a service. So our analysts who do this all the time can just very quickly and very easily just change the displays and adjust them as and when customers require.
And actually, you've just answered a question I was going to pose, which was if there's not a large IT department, then it's easy enough to be configured by maybe people trained up in finance, or like you've just said, you offer it as a service as part of the as part of your model, so people can request the setup.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll just keep an eye on the time. So we'll just show you a couple of other examples.
Whilst Graham's just moving to those examples now, if there are any sort of questions from the attendees, then please just pop them into the Q&A section now, because we're coming to the point where we're very happy to answer any comments or thoughts that you have. Sorry, Graham.
Yeah, so moving on from the sort of the what we call the fee earner performance, the actual standard performance within a firm, we're able to take that same data as well and provide it for further analysis. So this is more of a display that managers would use, heads of teams, and here I've got a list of clients. I'm currently looking firm-wide, but if I drill in on the left-hand side again to a particular team or department, I can see now, for our debt recovery team, I can see all the clients that team is working for. I can see who the client relationship partner is. And any of the financial measures that we were just looking at, we've now got aggregated by client. And I can drill into that further, and I can actually see here we've got some client groups. I can see the individual clients for that group, and we can just keep drilling down. And again, you can see I get underlines here. This is telling me where we've got the ability to drill down into the underlying transactions behind that. The same style of reporting can be used for things like source of business. If I want to drill into the different sources of business, I can see all the new instructions we've received from different sources. We can then analyze that by, for example, work type. All of these different ways of analyzing are built into the system. And this is easy navigation that partners within a law firm can use. They don't need to understand Excel to be able to do this level of analysis of what's going on. But if you're within the finance team and you want to use this data, again, you can always push it out to Excel. Okay? And whenever we export anything to Excel, it always goes out really clean. We don't have merged cells. We don't have all those complexities of color and formatting that make it difficult to work with the data. We just put out really clean data. So that's a very brief run through of some of the features within the Katchr dashboard solution. There's an awful lot more to it, and we'd love for you to take a look and have your own sort of personal demonstrations of it.
I've got one or two questions now, actually, Graham, which is good. First of all, does this information might come from different multiple data sources? So does this product just have the capability of plugging into multiple data sources?
Yeah, absolutely. So we would always connect the Katchr dashboards to your primary practice management system. So that's where we draw the financial information from. But any additional information that you have, maybe that's in your CRM system, maybe it's in a HR system, a payroll system, anything else that forms part of your overall management information can be pulled into the Katchr solution and then presented all in the same place within the same set of dashboards.
Now, how familiar does a client need to be with their own data sources and data structures? Because some may have that experience in-house and others perhaps not. So how are you set up at sort of Katchr to help firms understand what data they've got and where it is, and perhaps go the extra length, as it were, to, you know, cleanse and deal with that data, which, you know, not everybody has a wonderful data library and index of everything they've got. So what's the approach at Katchr to deal with that?
Yeah, so in terms of, first of all, getting the data out of the practice management system, knowing what's in there and how to get it out, that's one of our core expertises, and our team's was originally built around people who'd spent many years doing that within practice management vendors and doing data migrations, things like that. So that's core expertise that we've got. And on top of that, we've sort of built a level of best practice advice, really. You know, our consultants who are training and who are implementing these systems have worked with all the different practice management systems. So they've got great stories and great examples of how different firms have used, say, an SOS system or an advanced legal system, and how they've used that to capture the data in the best possible way. And then we take that out and we can incorporate it into the dashboards. So absolutely, there is no real need at all for any expertise within the practice management system, because that's one of the key things that we bring to the table.
So when it comes to that experience of interfacing with those different systems as well, because, you know, let's be honest, there's different quality of interface elements that exist in different practice management systems. Some of them have very good, what we call APIs, very good ways of interacting. But what you're saying is you have the experience within Katchr and indeed build into the project and implementation process your own skill sets to deal with those challenges as part of the onboarding. Because I myself have been in a situation of trying to build and onboard dashboards from different data sources, and it's not always straightforward.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, and back to that slide, I was saying, all of these systems on this slide we have built and have proven integrations with, and to deliver them to the next customer, it is literally roll it out of the box. So we've got that, but also because we've built this many systems, we know how to build these integrations, and we don't really care what the technology is. We can work with Progress databases, we can work with SQL, we can work with Access, we can work with Web APIs. We're really not worried.
And Graham, is there an average time to a project? It's difficult, different law firms, different sizes, but, you know, from the viewpoint of lead time and then onboarding and the average length of, say, you know, a 50 user law firm or a 100 user law firm, what would you say is a typical time on project to go from we've signed up to it's live?
Yeah. So we always say to firms when we're talking to them, set expectations around 3 to 4 months for that process. So that's for an entire custom solution. So it's built to a firm's specific requirements. We do have a solution that's pretty much straight out of the box for very small firms. But if you require a custom solution, there's a project involved, we say allow 3 to 4 months. A lot of that time is actually spent in the consultation design phase, rather than it being as actually doing build work, because we've built the tools to make it fairly quick for us to actually deliver the solution once we know what it is that the firm needs. There's a significant consultative and design phase that comes before that, that we guide firms through, again, based on our expertise and the experience we've had over the last 10 years delivering these solutions.
Super, 3 to 4 months, good to know. Right, all it leaves me to do is to thank our audience today. Thank you for listening in. Thank you, Jack. And Graham, thank you very much for spending the time taking us through both the classic problems within legal management information and showing us the innovative platform that you've put together very successfully in the legal market. And thank you for showing us that today.
No problem. Thank you, David, for the opportunity.
No problem at all. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll say goodbye at this point.